I spent the first 20 years of my career working in corporate America. I spent the last 17 changing lives. I don't mean to suggest that the first 20 were in any way unimportant or unfulfilling. They were incredibly fulfilling. I got to do what I always wanted to do. I worked for great companies like Westin Hotels and Seattle's Best Coffee. And I lived in great cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles and Seattle. I liked what I did and I was good at it. By the age of 45, as Chief Operating Officer for Seattle's Best Coffee, I had the good fortune to sell my stock options when we sold the company and really take my time thinking about what I wanted to do next. And while doing that, the L word, legacy, kept coming to mind. I thought, wouldn't it be great to take all of those great skills that I developed in 20 years in the for-profit world and really use them for a social mission? A recruiter eventually connected me with a small nonprofit in a suburb of Seattle called Orion Industries. Orion had been around since 1957, and they used an aerospace machine shop to fund their social mission. But they'd fallen on hard times. For the past 3 years, they'd been losing money, and they were quickly burning through their modest cash reserves. So, sounds kind of crazy, but this was exciting to me. This is what I did. I fixed stuff like that. But best of all was Orion's mission. Orion helps people with barriers to employment, so barriers like disabilities and people transitioning out of homelessness and drug addiction and the criminal justice system. Orion provides intensive programs of counseling, job training, and job placement to help these people transition back into the workplace. These are people that most employers wouldn't consider hiring, people that have been written off. So that was exactly what I was looking for. And despite the fact that I had no experience in nonprofits, human services, aerospace, or machine shops, I took the job. One of the first people that I met at Orion was Bev. Bev was 25 years old and had 3 kids. She had kind of a rough background. She dropped out of high school and got pregnant and moved in with her boyfriend. By the time Bev had her 3rd child, her boyfriend was dealing drugs. Eventually, he was arrested and sent to prison, and Bev's kids were taken away from her. When Bev came to Orion, her goal was to get some training, get a job, and get her kids back. It's hard to describe the impact that had on me, knowing the importance of Orion's program for Bev, but also the importance of Orion's program for Bev's kids. I knew immediately they'd made the right career decision. The first couple of years, though, at Orion were kind of tough. But we worked hard on doing all of those things that good companies do. So strategic planning, board development, staff development, core values, performance management, and fiscal responsibility. And eventually, the hard work paid off. We now have manufacturing operations and call center operations in 3 different cities in 2 different states. We are a Governor's Aerospace Company of the Year. We're a 2-time Seattle Business Magazine Manufacturer of the Year. We're a Microsoft Supplier of the Year, and we're a 3-time Boeing Global Supplier of the Year. But best of all, we provide human services to over 500 people every year. 84% of the people that we place in jobs keep those jobs. That's pretty impressive when you consider the fact that in the general population, about 1/3 of the people that start new jobs leave those jobs during the first year. Robert came to Orion right out of prison. He came from a rough background also. He dropped out of high school, started using drugs, and he eventually started dealing drugs. He eventually started using meth and dealing meth. Robert's world came crashing down when his meth lab blew up and he was severely burned. His recovery in the hospital was difficult because he knew as he lay there recovering from his burns that as soon as he got out of the hospital that he'd go to prison. But he served his time, and when he got out of prison, he came to Orion. When I met Robert, he had severe burn scars on his face, neck, and ears, on his hands, and on his arms. He had a finger amputated on one hand, and he wore pressure bandages on his hands and his forearms. But what really surprised me and impressed me was the fact that despite Robert's background and his disabilities, he was one of the most positive, charismatic, outgoing people I've ever met. And he was determined. He was determined to get some training, get a job, and turn his life around. When Robert completed his program, his Orion job developer found him a shipping and receiving job with a local employer. He'd come back every few months to let us know how he was doing. After a few months, he came back to tell us that he was promoted to shipping and receiving supervisor. A few months after that, he came back to show us his brand new shiny pickup truck. And the next year, he came back to tell us that he was engaged to be married. We were so proud of him. One of our job developers wisely pointed out that for many of our program participants, Orion is the closest thing to family they've ever had. And the work that they do at Orion is the first thing they've ever been proud of. But it's also the first time anyone has ever been proud of them. Every one of the hundreds of people that Orion serves every day has an inspiring story. We see the power of having a job every day. We see the impact of having those jobs on the families of these individuals. Every year we invite some of our graduates to come and speak with our board of directors. And oftentimes they bring family members. They bring mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives. And their family members are just as touched and proud of their family members as our graduate is. Not everybody can be as lucky as I've been to have had 2 careers, but every one of you can change lives. There are Roberts and Bevs in every community. There are Orions in every community. I'd like to encourage you to find the Orion in your community. Believe me, there's nothing like the feeling of being part of something like that. Thank you.